Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to the Rules of Engagement. As always, I'll be your host, Nick axslav ranish. Today we've got a pretty cool episode of Developing Fundamentals, but first let me tell you about the weekly schedule. So this show airs on every day at 7 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. Every Monday is going to be Talking Tactics. That's where we take a look at professional level games and analyze the tactics they use in their play and how you can use those tactics back at home to enhance your play. Every Tuesday is going to be Developing Fundamentals. That's where we take a look at the core skill sets and building blocks that are involved in Starcraft 2 and how you can basically learn to master those skills and approach getting better in Starcraft 2. Every Wednesday is going to be Mechanics of the Bizarre. That's where I take a look at professional level games, but this time games where they do stuff a little bit offbeat, a little bit crazy, and talk about why those strategies worked in those situations and why maybe they don't work quite all the time. Thursday is going to be Community Critique. That's right, it's your chance to get me to look at your replays on air at majorleaguegaming.com/replays. Submit that form, send me your replay. Hardest form is going to be what we're focusing on from now on out. So send me your hardest form replays. I'll take a look at them every Thursday, and it's a great opportunity to get some criticism and see what went wrong in your games. Every Friday is a day of self-reflection. That's where I take a look at my own replays, kind of turn the looking glass in on myself and see what did I do well in these games, what did I do poorly. Tactics I use to maybe compensate for having a little bit worse hand-eye coordination or a little bit slower actions per minute. Tactics you can use to improve your play without having to grind out practice every day of the week. All these shows are at 7 p.m. Eastern, but today, Developing Fundamentals, let's talk about what's going on today. So it's going to be kind of an interesting episode. It may not be quite as fundamental as some of the other ones, but we're going to start off talking about how the relationship between your economy and your production and your army size actually works. And then take a look at how you can study your opponent's economy, production, and army relation. And then how to make strong timings based on the knowledge of how your economy, production, army relation corresponds to your opponent's. Basically, how to know if you should move out and attack or if you should stay back and defend. Of course, we're going to end the show with a question and answer portion, so feel free to send me any questions. Tweet them to me at axslav and get started with that. So let's start with our first topic, economy, production, and army relation. The first thing I want to talk about there is how long does it take for a worker to pay for itself off? If you invest in economy, how long does it take for that worker to make the cost that you put into producing it? And then talk about how long does it take for that extra economy that you're going to get from that worker from there on out to turn into an extra production capability. And then, of course, you can turn that production into army. And then at the end, we're gonna talk about how you can compare economy and production investments and how they basically the different position you'll be in investing in either one of those choices as the game pans out. So first, let's do one quick question: how long does it take for a worker to pay for itself? Well, it's actually a pretty straightforward answer. A worker takes almost always about 75 seconds to pay for itself. So if it's an unsaturated base, so if you can come there and mine, and mines very quickly and well, it's about 75 seconds. If it's just mining from a closed patch, it's slightly less than that, but basically 75 seconds if you're not saturated yet for a worker to pay for itself. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is how long does it take for extra economy to basically turn into extra production capabilities. So what I want to do here is I want to take a look at a replay. In this replay, there's going to be two circumstances. One is you start with just 3 SCVs. We're going to keep it as a small number to keep it simple. 3 SCVs is what it takes to keep a barracks running Marines constantly. So we're just going to have enough workers to constantly produce Marines out of a single barracks. And in test case 1, as we play it out, we're going to see building the barracks, and then and just focusing on Marine production from one barracks. So you start with 150 minerals, and you're saying, how much should I, if I invest that all into production, how will my army look like as the game pans out from this angle? So we're just increment replay a little bit. And then after this segment, we're gonna take a look at how will your army look out if you instead investing into barracks, invest in 3 SCVs. And now you have enough SCVs, you have 6, so you can produce out of 2 barracks, and then trying to get 2 barracks up and producing out of them. As we fast forward through this, we can see that in 3 minutes, so from 3:30 to 6:30, if you start with the barracks, and then you spend all your money just on Marines, you're going to end up with 4 Marines in the game. All right? Now we're just going to fast forward through this again, just really quickly get to and next section to restart everything. There we go. Now we're going to look at a situation where, let's say you had the same starting situation. You had 3 SCVs, but this time, instead of spending 150 minerals on a barracks, you spent 150 minerals queuing up 3 different SCVs. Now it's going to be very different because instead of, the barracks would be almost done at this point, but instead of it being almost done, instead of starting it right off the bat, remember I started this simulation at the 8-minute mark, the barracks didn't start until the 9-minute mark. So your first barracks is a full minute later if you do it this way. Then your second barracks is going to come up a full minute and 45 seconds later. So basically, if you build 3 SCVs instead of the barracks, you're slowing your first production building by a minute. And then your second production building is a minute and 45 seconds after that economic investment. So if you want to say, how long does it take for my investment into those SCVs to pay off into like an extra production facility and then therefore into extra units? It takes a minute 45 seconds for you to, from when you start building those first couple workers until they can start building that extra production facility. And then it's going to take even longer for that production facility then finish, and then you be able to actually produce units out of it. So it's going to take a couple minutes to catch up in army size. Let's take a look at a graph here. And what this graph is, it's that same simulation ran, but the difference is that it's just looking at the economy of the situation. So as you can see here, the one player, if you open up with just investing in the barracks, your economy goes up here, and then it's going to go up again as soon as that SCV gets off the barracks. There's minor fluctuations just due to the way it calculates economy if all the SCVs return minerals at the same time or not. But the basic idea is you're going to go up, and then as soon as you're going to start at a high point, and then as soon as you get that barracks done, you're going to max out here basically. Oops, wrong setting. You're going to max out at this line, and then you're just producing 1 Marine at a time from there on out. Now, on the other hand, if you invest in 3 SCVs instead of that barracks, one thing you're going to notice is that it's going to be a little bit different because you're going to start off with a much higher economy. You're going to start off with basically the same that you would as if you had 3, right? But then, as what happens is you build more, you keep going up. There was some zealot harassment there. Really would have looked more like probably like this is what the graph would look like if there wasn't that AI zealot coming in and busting my base. And so you see it flatlines for a bit while you're building those barracks. And as soon as the barracks are done, you're up to 6. And now, at this point, this last section, you're building Marines 2 at a time instead of 1 at a time. So if you want to talk about the Army relationship, you can tell your first Marine, if you invest in the barracks, at this point right here, this zone here, you're making basically 1x, 1 Marine, we'll put M for Marine, every 25 seconds. Because that's the build time of Marine, right? And so you have all that zone. With this zone, what you have is you basically have a small section, right? So your first barracks started a minute later, which means instead of being here, it's going to be basically here you have 1 Marine every 25 seconds. And then at the very end, though, all of a sudden you're going to be getting 2 Marines every 25 seconds. So if you notice, it starts out like, wait a minute, at the end of that simulation, after 3 minutes, I'm ending up with just 2 less Marines, because I end up with 2 at the end of the simulation instead of 4. But then every minute there on after, you're going to get more and more and more ahead in Marines. So instead of having, you'll have 2 Marines, but then a minute down the road, you're going to have 6 Marines. Instead of having 4 Marines and a minute down the road, 6 Marines. If you want to break it up into timestamps, you can think of it this way. If you invest in production or economy, for the first minute, you'll have exactly the same amount of army, which will be 0, because it takes a while to get that production set up. From minutes 1 to 3, you're going to have more army if you went for the production first. From minutes 3 plus, you're going to have more army if you went for the economy. So there's a 2-minute timing window in which investing in production can really start to pay off between minutes 1 and 3. Basically, like you start your production facilities, and between 1 minute after that and 3 minutes after that is going to be where timing is set. And this is true with pretty much any type of Terran base structure timing. If it's 5 barracks versus 6, if you're building factories, whatever it is, between 1 minute after you build that production facility and 3 minutes is when your best timing is if you're going to invest a lot into production to try to hit timing. Otherwise, you're better off hitting economy to play for a stronger army later on in the game, because you can queue up even more production once you have more economy. So we'll get back in the game. Actually, no, we won't. We'll just we'll go back here and just tell you a few final thoughts about this idea. If you're trying to basically set up your base to do a timing attack, let's say you first want to do is basically pick a rough section of the game you want to launch your attack in. So I want to do a one base attack. Then you want to say, okay, one base attack, the very latest I want to hit is 10 minutes. Because this is when the second base has already paid off way too much. So it's basically you want to hit by, at the very latest, 10 minutes for one base timing attack. More likely try to hit in the 6 to 8 range. And then with the 2 base timing attack, you want to look to hit between like the 9 minute and 13 minute time range. And then for 3 base, something like a 12 minute to 15 minute time range. And these are things you can look by watching the pro gamer timings. But you pick what time of the game you want to launch your timing, and then you want to queue up your production. Building should be finishing for that timing roughly 3 minutes before that, right? Or somewhere between 2 and 3 minutes before that. And so then you can say, okay, this is when my production needs to be starting to be built. So up until that point, nothing but economy. And then, let's say you want to hit a 10-minute timing, nothing but economy until 7 minutes. Then build all my production builds at 7 minutes, and then I'll have a great time attack at 10 minutes for the ideal time. Because you get a lot of production, so you can afford a lot of production buildings, or a lot of economy, afford a lot of production buildings, afford a lot of units to go kill them before any investments they have will have paid off more so than yours. So that wraps it up for this segment. We'll make things a little more clear in the next segment, where we talk about how you can look at your opponent's kind of relation, and that'll give you a lot more information on when to launch your attacks.